The minute the client says it's okay to use that AI image, we were done 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And you don't need me. That was the big, revelation for me too, was like, this is not viable because they really, I can see the day when they don't need me. So I need to find ways that, I'm still relevant and I make sense in this new paradigm.
So imagine like building your career over the last 30 plus years, building a studio, photography, working with a lot of huge brands, being a veteran of this industry, and then saying, I quit. AI's here. I'm out.
I quit.
But you're not. You've just embraced AI and you have completely reinvented yourself. I want to get into that and kind of learn how, what you've done and what you're doing. So Terri, what's up, man? How's it going?
It's going great. Going good, man.
So you put out this LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
And it was, I quit. I've had a studio. I'm selling my studio. I'm diving all into AI. What was the turning point to say, I'm out?
It was a weekend away in Chicago with my wife that really was the turning point, but it started way before that. I mean, I've been doing AI for 3 years. I love doing it. I have so much fun. And more, I found myself on set, just not really excited, not into the shots. And, I'm like, you've got a new bacon cheeseburger. That's fabulous. We'll do a great job, but I'm just not going to be thrilled about it. And there was a day when I just, oh my God, I'm shooting a bacon cheeseburger for Wendy's. Oh my God,
Right.
And it was exciting. And now it's like, another, okay, Buffalo Wild Wings, bacon cheeseburger, whatever. So I'm just like, I've reached the point where I'm just not feeling it on set anymore. I find myself on set going, why am I doing this stupid shot when I could be like, doing that new thing that just came out, the new thing that released that I can't wait to get home and try that. So, I was finding that for a while. And last year I had a conversation with ChatGPT about, my business and where my pain points were. And, we talked about solutions and finally just it said, make 2025 a year of transition, and halfway through the year, reevaluate. So I was kind of thinking that all along. I've had my eye toward a lot of stuff. I mean, when I saw Sora, years ago, that was when I first saw that clip, I was like, okay, everything I buy from now on, if I can't utilize it in the next 6 months to a year, I don't need to buy it. I used to buy stuff and be like, well, sometime I'll use that. Sometime of course I'll use that.
You're talking about like tools for photography.
Tools, equipment, lenses, whatever. Yeah. So now if I can't use it, I'll rent it. So, I was already kind of doing some of those things. I was already kind of paring down some stuff in my studio, getting rid of a few things, but, I still hung on to so much stuff. And I just found that this year was supposed to be my year of transition. So halfway through the year, I'm like, hey, we got to figure this out. Let's go away and try and just think about this. So we went away for a long weekend and we talked about it a lot and talked about, what it meant. And, I came back, I met with my accountant, I met with a realtor, and I pulled the trigger. And it was I thought it would be the most difficult, gut-wrenching decision of my life because I am a studio photographer through and through. I grew up in the 80s working for photographers, and that was the rite of passage. If you had your own studio and maybe a pool table, you were the bomb, So I was just like, this is where, this is my life. This is who I am. And it's everything. And I just got to the point where I'm like, I don't think it is. I think I can do this. And really, when I made the decision, I was shocked. I was telling clients that I thought would be really upset with me. And they were like, you know what? I saw this coming. Yeah. That's what you're meant to do. I'm like, well, you knew it before I did because I'm just really figuring this out. Yeah. And, I also was presented a lot of opportunities as I did that phase because I had to, I had a few jobs in progress and a few jobs that I kind of put off and just said, I'm not going to bid that because I'm not going to be here in 3 months. So finished out the projects that I had, that were already booked, but I didn't take anything new. And, clients were just very, very understanding, very gracious. The client I thought would be the most upset with me because she had spent a ton of her capital, I know, because we go way back, and she took a new job, she's got a higher position, and she used it to get me in there. She fought for me. I did one job for them, and then I said, I'm out. And I know I thought like, she's going to hate me. She spent all this, capital trying to get me in there, and now I'm bailing. And she was like, you know what, Terry, never follow, always lead. And I was like, wow. Okay. She was like, do it. This is perfect. So she's like, I can't wait to see what you're doing and reconnect. So I'm like, all right, this is, it's awesome. So I'm just getting such great feedback and having opportunities open up now that I'm kind of done with the studio that are, giving me new opportunities with AI.
Going back to that double cheeseburger, bacon cheeseburger, whatever that is, right? If I tell you, hey man, I got to shoot my new restaurant, I need a burger photograph for my packaging. Are you instantly, all right, this is the lens I would shoot. This is the way I would light it. I'm going to mist it. Like, do you already have that vision in your mind? Like, once we went through the brief and all that stuff, like technically this is like cake.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about what it's going to look like and how I get there. And based on, things you might say, I might decide like I need a really hard edge light or what you're telling me you want to project with the image. So I'm already thinking about those things.
Yeah. So like if we're doing all that day's worth of work of setting up, like let's get into like what did it take? And now what does it take with AI to get multiples?
So let me answer your question, then I can kind of add on to that. But I think that it's really, it's the same kind of things. I might be thinking about what I wanted to create, whether I wanted a hard backlight, things like that. So then that might affect how I prompt it, or maybe the tools that I use to get it. Depending on the product, it can be pretty hard to replicate some things. Like I'm still telling clients when they call me and go, can we do this with AI? And I'm like, okay, what are you trying to say? Well, we make all these sell sheets and we do this stuff. And I'm like, you're not spending anything on those to start with, and that's fine, but I can't do it any cheaper with AI. It's not just an expense machine. It's like, we can ramp it up. We can do some things you could never do before, but I can't just do it cheaper. So, sometimes it's that sort of thing. It's just correcting the client. And then sometimes, if I'm actually trying to proceed with that, then it's just, it's starting to use my tools, starting to use prompts that might evoke that same feeling. Cause again, I know from what you said, what I want it to look like. So I've already started thinking about that, and based on what the brand guidelines are and whatever else you need, I'm already thinking about those things. So I might just transition that, straight into the AI. Cause it's more about like what your vision is than the tools necessarily. I think as I become more versed in AI, I know better which tool is going to work for that. Just like I know which lens is going to give you that wide angle effect you want, or that, that really, hero image. I know, that's a low camera angle. So maybe I just, I know that with AI too. And I know what tool will work for that, or how I need to prompt to get that. The expansion I was going to do on that was that I find myself now, you said when you start a project, so a client called me and they said, we have some food shots we want you to, to do for us. We want to up our packaging. We want to, we need some social media stuff. We need this different stuff. And, I would have been like, okay, cool. I would have started working up a bid. And this time I had to be like, well, you caught me at a transitional time. So I am not doing that type of photography anymore. But I looked at your website, I looked at stuff, you could use some people stuff on your, on your social media and things. And I know you're not doing it because they're kind of a B, C tier brand. So they can't, really afford a lot of that stuff and book a big model shoot. I'm like, I could create some images for you that, highlight models and your food. I could maybe shoot, this case, I could shoot their food because it's a container, and I could shoot that. And then I could incorporate an AI background. I could make the wood table. I could make the other, elements on the table, the other food items or the cups or saucers or whatever. And so I'm like, there's ways I can still attack this and still do it. Now, I'm not going to be the guy they need to shoot their package, their images for the package anymore, because that's not what I'm doing. And I don't think AI actually serves that better necessarily. But for some of these other things that are a little more cost, sensitive, maybe I can become a valuable asset. So I'm having to reposition my business model as to what kind of things, I go after.
I mean, you just said that just because I'm using AI doesn't mean I'm any cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's the way people think, is like, oh, well, I can just type in some words anybody can do this. Like this should be super cheap. Like that. I think that that's the misconception. It's just another tool. You still have to be the artist that knows how to use it.
Yeah, you still have to have the vision. You still have to know when you've got it, when you don't have it. You have to recognize the shot. I think sometimes I've looked at so many, students and their book and their portfolio, and you get to a shot near the end or something. You're like, why didn't you lead with this? This is like your best shot, and it's here at the end. Oh, you like that? Because they don't see it.
Yeah.
They don't get it. So it's like, I think that happens a lot with AI. People prompt and they might get a beautiful shot and they just don't know it and they keep going, or they don't go far enough. That's probably more likely that most people try it and go, it doesn't work that well. And it's like, well, yeah, keep going. You'll get there.
Yeah. And you did a post, kind of like going back to food photography, because like, you're saying maybe you don't do food photography as much anymore, but you did a post a while ago with the Tyson chicken nuggets. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I'm still doing a lot of food stuff just because that's what I know and that's what I have fun with. But I saw Tyson's, new chicken nuggets packaged in the freezer case, and I'm like, oh my God, this is just so play school. The design was just so big colors, and I know the freezer case, you're looking through a glass window that's fogged up, and it's got to read and it's got to be legible, and consumers got to see it from a distance and recognize it. But I just thought you could have done so much more, and especially the food photography stood out to me as lacking. The ramekin the ramekin wasn't big enough to dip the nuggets in, and I'm like, this is horrible. So I thought, can I just recreate this with AI? Because I might have been like, well, I'm going to go to the studio and I'm going to hire a food stylist and we're going to shoot this and we're going to show them what we can do. And, $2,000 later, I'd be like, that was stupid. So, but with AI, I could play with it and try some things. And, there's some compositing on that shot and some Photoshop and, just putting different things together. But I kind of, changed the color of the plate, changed the nuggets, changed up the lighting. So, it was a great way for me to just, sit here at my computer and create.
What would have been the cost to shoot those bland nuggets versus what would be the cost to do an AI generated version that looks 50 times better?
It's probably a lot cheaper. Because, if I'm shooting those nuggets for real and I'm doing that in my studio, I'm getting cases and cases of product because we're going to sort through a bunch of stuff. I'm bringing in a food stylist, probably from New York or, Chicago or LA. And, they're bringing an assistant with them and there's all that expense, and the agency might be flying in from somewhere else. So, all that expenses, all those things are adding up. Everybody from the agency that's on set, the clients on set, looking at the stuff, approving things, it would be quite expensive. So I think that, the cost of actually shooting it, you're going to spend, half a day doing that shot. Maybe, you're going to have assistants, you're going to have the equipment costs, you're going to have the studio rental, all those things. What I did with AI, it took me several hours, but still, I bet, if you paid me, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000 for that image, that would have covered the time. And that's a heck of a deal compared to the probably tens of thousands you would have paid, or they do pay all the time to shoot it and to end up with something that, is not even right, not even there, like it just seems like there is opportunity for this to really save some costs, but I think that it also gives them opportunity to do things they couldn't have done before. They could do this remotely. They wouldn't have to travel. They could, change their mind and decide that they want a blue plate instead, or, they could do other things. So, I think that it just, gives us more flexibility and more opportunity. And with food photography, just like with models, there's a high cost in that because of all the ancillary people that you need on the set. But with, AI, it's just me in my home office, working away.
All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod. If you were 25, are you getting into the photography, like digging deep into that, or are you more focused on the AI?
a couple of things with that. One is, let me start by saying I recognize that my stage, of my career and my life and everything has given me this opportunity to pull the trigger now. I think I'm probably just a little bit early for kind of going full time into AI image generation, but I see myself as a test case where I can explore and, try things and see how this goes. I'm going to be working on articles with Wonderful Machine doing, updates throughout this process as to how it's going and things that I'm challenged with, and also showing some of the AI work I'm doing. So hopefully that can inspire some other photographers to, what's the road look like? It also means that, at this point in my life, I can make these decisions and do this. When I was 30 and $1 million in debt, like I would have been like, AI, what are you talking about? No, that's horrible. That's horrible. Let's burn it, So I recognize that I would have had a much different opinion. That being said, I had an assistant who went to 4 years of photography school, and I told her, I'm like, I kept telling her all the AI things I was doing, how I could do stuff. And I'm like, I don't think this is, you got to go in with your eyes open. Because if you're going to go in and be a photographer now, especially just straight out of school, it's going to be hard, and it just may never happen. I don't think. If you're 30 and you're in it now and it's your career, there's a lot, there's a lot you can do. And I would say there's always room at the top. So start climbing the ladder, because otherwise, the sharks are eating everybody on the bottom. So move up as quick as you can, learn some of the AI, learn some of the tools, be aware of it. And I don't mind somebody that doesn't want to use AI, but know it enough to know why you don't want to use it. Don't just say, oh, that's, from the devil or whatever. Say, I tried it and it doesn't work for this kind of situation. And here's why. And that's a valid argument. I'm fine with that.
Is there, and you mentioned you were a little nervous talking to some of your customers about, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm moving forward. Was the fear reputation, that you're losing that reputation as this photographer?
Yeah, I think that was part of what I wrestled with to make the final decision. Was I kind of felt like I was, I was doing things for the not the glory, but the fact that I was, I have this analogy that I'm kind of using in my retirement called landing the plane. And it's like, when you start your career, you kind of take off and you don't think about it much. And you just trying to get the thing off the ground, and once you reach cruising speed, you're thinking, this is fine. I can do this forever, and then you realize when you get older, like, I got to land this thing. And that's probably just as important as getting in the air. So, but I using that plane analogy, I kind of feel like I was the captain of a 747. I was the captain. I was the shit. I was in charge. I decided, I was doing all the stuff. And I had to kind of let go of that idea of that's who I was, and be like, do I want to just hang on to that for the name and the title? Or do I want to really, do what I'm passionate about and what I enjoy doing? I won't be the captain of the 747 anymore, but, I can do what I love doing.
You can be the guy that's like with the things, right?
Yeah.
You're on this side of it now.
Well, no, I can get a small plane. See, I can get a small plane now, fly my own little plane. I don't have all the overhead, the studio, all the stuff.
In the first episode, we covered some of the stuff that you were doing. You were just testing it, right? You were doing like backdrops, and then you were dropping food into scenes that you'd created, and you were kind of you were shooting things at the right angle, and then creating the scene behind it, and like that went really. Like that was amazing back then, back then, like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Doing what you're doing now, like how is it different today than what you were doing just a couple of years ago?
Well, that's a specific difference, because before I would have said, create the image first and then shoot the product to strip in. So, where the lighting's coming from, the angle, how high you need to be, how low, whatever. But now, with the retexture and some of the edit tools and things, especially in Midjourney, I can shoot the product first. And then, Midjourney will figure out where the shadow goes and, give me the right angle. So it, opens up so many possibilities to do other things and to not have to try to work within the confines of making it blend into the shot. So now I can do the product and then let it create the background. And sometimes
are you adjusting for focus and and all of that in the process of the prompt, or are you doing that like up front?
in the process of the prompt mostly, but it's gonna do most of that for you. But yeah, you can do some of that, in the prompting of what you want for the background, selective focus, kitchen, or whatever it is. So
And you were kind enough to send a bunch of images, and kind of looking through these, like your King's Hawaiian pretzel balls. Like,
yeah,
dude, like that is so crazy. It's in the packaging. You can see through the plastic. You can see, the out of focus. Like, I mean, this is a shot. This is a photo.
yeah, yeah, and that's one that Midjourney struggled with. It tries to do too much stuff, and now we've got Flux and some other tools, Nano Banana, that are able to do a lot. They listen to you a lot better. Midjourney wants to create a beautiful shot. The other tools kind of listen to you better. And so I was using some of the other tools too. I think I even used chat on that one when they first introduced that image model, a new image model. And I was using chat to create that dome, because it could do it properly. Because I was actually trying to recreate a real product in that case.
Sure.
It had sea salt and it had cinnamon on it. And, I was trying to recreate the product. And that took several kind of composites and different, I like prompted for one covered with cinnamon sugar and then one covered with salt, so I could blend them together because it wasn't giving me both at the same time. So it was kind of that sort of thing. But yeah, I was so impressed that I could get that clear top and everything else. But that was actually something I was trying to see if I could recreate the real product, and it was very difficult. So I would say that although it can be done, unless you have a reason that you need to do that, it might be cheaper to shoot it still. Yeah. But, we're getting there. We keep improving.
Yeah. And that's the only way you find out, right? Is you keep pushing it and seeing how far you can get with it. So you mentioned Flux, you mentioned Midjourney and chat. What's your toolbox look like?
Still Midjourney because it's the most creative. I still end up there, but fell in love with Flux, and now Nano Banana has really got me captured. I'm loving that too. I kind of use both of those the same way. They just listen better. And then I'm still using Magnific to upscale. Although Topaz is about to release some amazing tools that I've kind of experimented with when they were in beta. I'm looking forward to that to do some upscaling with. So I kind of stay open. I try to stay open. I try to bounce between things and try different stuff. I use Leonardo sometimes, but not as much. I think that's one you need to get into more. Just going to it here and there, it's really hard to kind of figure out and work through some of the settings. So, and there's almost too many settings. But yeah, with Midjourney, I've started doing stuff in Flux, and like I can move the camera angle 20 degrees or whatever, and so I can move it to the side, and then I might take it back to Midjourney and have it retexturize it and give me, and my prompt is more about the lighting, and it will give me the same image just lit differently. I changed the kitchen from like ugly flat daytime to night, and it had like this yellow light coming through and hitting the wall, and it was in the shape where the window would cast, and then there was blue light everywhere else, and so kind of combining things.
Again, photography is all about light, right? It's the capture of light. So I hate to ask this question because it sounds so stupid. Like the transfer of skills, is it a 1-to-1 from photography to this in terms of like the composition, the lighting? Or is it getting so easy that just somebody that maybe has never shot a photo before can get equal quality images?
Well, it's getting much better. So yeah, if you haven't shot an image, you can get lucky, but it is a transfer of skills completely for me. And because I was very visual anyway. It wasn't that I was a tool geek or I knew how to use a certain tool. It was just my visual thing that I, relied on. And I do the same thing with the AI. So for me, it's a complete, 1-to-1 transfer of the skills to that. I know what I like. I know what I want it to look like. And I'm just trying to get there.
Okay. And then shooting stuff. Let's say this King's Hawaiian was an actual project.
Yeah.
There's the IP ethics question that comes up as a designer. If I'm creating images, do I own those where I can sell those? Like how does that work, and kind of what's your position on that?
The legal answer right now is that anything created solely with computer is not copyrightable. So if that King's Hawaiian roll is technically not copyrightable. However, I composited images. I created it in different things. I composited them together. I added elements. I cropped. I did whatever. I spent, like I said, a long time doing that. You would think that would qualify for a copyright, and it may. But this is really something that has to be litigated, or the Copyright Office has to change their stance, and that's probably not going to happen. So this really has to go through the course and kind of be litigated. But right now, the best way to think about it is that if it's created solely with AI, it's probably not copyrightable. That's a challenge, not necessarily for me, because most of my clients were demanding the copyright anyway when I was shooting photography. So they were demanding it and paying for it, which was fine. The difference is this time, I can't really license the image. I can't sell it to you and sell it to someone else unless I want to piss you off if you're my client. And technically you can't sell it to anyone else because you don't own the copyright either. So, that sort of thing, it makes it difficult. And then I think clients have been so ingrained that they have to have the copyright. And I wonder if part of that isn't just agencies pounding it into their head all those years, because the agencies didn't want to use stock. That's horrible. Like, let's tell them they need the copyright. We got to go shoot this. We can't just buy stock. So clients got into the mode that we have to own the copyright. Well, I'm working on a project right now for a package that's an LTO package, limited time only, And so I'm like, why don't we do this with AI? It's cheaper, it's faster. For this project, it works great. And it's only live for 3 months. What do you care if you can copyright it? In 3 months, you don't care. Let somebody steal it. You're done, So yeah, and we're doing it. So I'm excited about that.
If it's not copyrightable, one, you don't have to say that it's copyrighted anyway, because it's a photo on your packaging.
Yeah.
Who's going to think, I can steal that? They don't know if it's a photo, if it's AI, whatever. But the other thing too is, if I can steal the chicken nuggets off of that Tyson bag, I may as well just have someone create my own version. And if I'm Tyson, I can change out that image without the cost of like the full photo shoot and everything else. Like, I should be able to change this out pretty regularly in terms of just calling, hey, Terri, let's update that image. And you don't have to set up a whole studio. You can just do this, on a constant basis. So from a design perspective, like, you could actually set up a retainer to continue updating this packaging every time they run it. You're just, you know everything else. You're just tweaking the photo, making it look fresher, making it, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it gives you some flexibility that you didn't have before, because now it's not copyrightable, but who cares? Yeah. I can run a million different versions of this every time I run it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I kind of reminds me of a side note, because I was just responding to somebody on LinkedIn that, food photographers, I love this when food photographers are like, yeah, but that's not real. AI is not real. You're showing fake food. You can't do that. I'm like, who believes what we do is real? Who is out there going, oh, that's so authentic, Terri. That burger looks just like mine, No, it doesn't, because you're going to eat it. You're going to experience it. I'm just trying to make sure that photograph represents the experience you have eating it. So
don't they use like shortening for ice cream, and there's all that?
Yeah. I mean, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah. I mean, some, even when it's real, when it's absolutely 100% real, people are like, oh, that's fake. That's fake. I'm like, and then, food photographers are like, we can't use AI. I'm like, we above everyone else can use AI.
That's funny. So like, how long do you think this is going to last? Like, this model jumping is going to last before everybody is just AI? Will people just shoot photography for craft and self-pleasure versus like career?
Well, I think of it like or not just black and white, film photography. When digital came along, you really had to upskill and learn the digital and transition. Not because you wouldn't have a job. You could still shoot film, and you could still find people that would pay you to do it. And some people will pay you really well to do it. Your opportunities are more limited, because that's all you shoot. So I just found that there were photographers that didn't make that jump. And I think most of them kind of went away. Some of them, did really well. And they were then, the big fish in the small pond, because it was film, and, they can get commissions, they get other things, and that's what they love. And that's great, because then there's still room for them. But again, it's that there's always room at the top, So if you were the best, you could stay shooting film and you'd probably be fine. Same will probably happen here. If you're really good, there's still going to be needs for that. And there may be, some really high end needs for that. So I think it's still viable for quite a while. I mean, quite a while, a year, 2 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, look how fast things move.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. This stuff is going so fast. I mean, I'm thinking back 3 years ago, what I thought this was going to be. And what's hard is there's nothing you can do that you can kind of hang your hat on. Like, you can't be like, I know how to use this tool to get this and do that, and then I add in that tool, because next week there's one tool that can do all of that. And the next week there's one tool. Like, people will ask me to consult. Like, can you tell us how you do it? I'm like, I can, but in 2 weeks that's going to be a waste of money because you pay me for knowledge that's no longer relevant. So, I'm just finding that this stuff is happening so fast, and now I'm starting to go, like, I don't know where it'll go, because I've got tired of trying to predict it.
Where does AI fail your smell test?
That's a hard one. It's kind of just a visual thing for me. Like, it's just, I know it when I see it. And if I can't, sometimes I can't get there. I don't know when that it fails me. I mean, sometimes it does for sure, but I just kind of move on and go to something else. I've really got an attitude. Mm-hmm. When digital came along, I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to jump into that. But, it became apparent that I really needed to. It's the fact that with digital, I needed to I tried to do things with a 3.2 megapixel camera and make them perfect. And when I tried to make them perfect, it was killing me. And 6 months later, we had an 8 megapixel camera, and I didn't care about my 3.2 megapixel shots because they were crap anyway. Yeah. So I realized this time around with the AI, I don't need to keep, just messing with trying to make it perfect or trying to figure out every little nuance. I just need to prove it that it can work and then move on. So I'm not trying to like finesse everything unless it's for a client, then I'll finesse it out. But otherwise, I just kind of prove that it works and move on. So I have a much more relaxed attitude about things this time around. I'm not trying to make it so it's got to be perfect, because it'll take too much time unless I need it for, a client.
As I'm thinking back to like the original things that I would get from Midjourney and the type of trash that it would generate, and it's the same as like that 3.2 megapixel camera, right? Like once you get the new one, you're like, oh God, that's
why was I spending so much time perfecting that? It's not in my book anymore. It's gone. Yeah.
Oh, that's so
it's given me a whole new perspective on this time around. And it's only because I lived through that digital that I understood that and recognized that was going to happen again. And I needed to just be focused on proving concepts, proving what could work, and then moving on to the next big idea and seeing what else I could do.
Your photography that you've shared, like the chicken nuggets, you've got people, like the skin tone, like everything is amazing. And I'm seeing all this stuff come through like Midjourney, and it looks great. You've got tons of food. Cookies look amazing. You've got this pot roast that is insane. What are your clients saying? What are the agencies and the brands that you're working with when they're seeing the stuff that you're generating? Is it concern, amazement, let's work together? Like what's the overall feel?
I thought it would be let's work together, but it's honestly, I think the agencies are doing a lot more than we know right now. I mean, every layout I get was AI generated, anymore. So they're already using it internally, and they're getting people that are quite good at it because, of course, they're designers. And now it's not depending on knowing how to operate a camera. It's just depending on knowing what you like and what you want. And so they are quite capable of producing some pretty good stuff. That's one of the things I've found, is that I think my model may be a little bit more going direct to clients now than it's always been, working through agencies and brands and things like that. And now I'm finding that going directly to the client gives me more of an opportunity to be that, creative person in the loop and bringing those designs and ideas. A lot of big companies have their own in-house departments anyway, so they'll produce the art. But yeah, I think with the agencies, it's been a little harder to sell them on using me. Plus, a lot of them, because of the kind of work they're doing or what they're working on, they might not want to try to sell the client on buying an image that isn't copyrightable, so they might be struggling to actually, encourage their clients to use it for a finished piece. They have no problem using it in their exploratory phases and in their comps and everything else, but they're hesitant to use it, on a final package. But when they bring me those AI layouts, they're pretty good, and they want me to match it exactly. And I'm like, the minute the client says it's okay to use that AI image, we were done 2 weeks ago, right? And you don't need me. That was the big, revelation for me too, was like, this is not viable, because they really, I can see the day when they don't need me. So I need to find ways that, I'm still relevant and I make sense in this new paradigm.
Sure. So then in the old days when you were a photographer, I mean, you're still a photographer. In the old days when you had your photography studio, then you were going through agencies and working with the big brands, and then some of the big brands would hire you as well. Because of that, where you're getting a lot of creatives that can dig into AI and create some of this stuff on their own, you're moving to smaller clients.
I mean, I'm still doing stuff for big brands and we're using the AI, and that's great, but it's not typically through an agency. I am going, like smaller brands. I'm like, hey, I might do this now. Before I wouldn't have been able to do something for them. Now I can. And I'm finding that, a smaller agency that might not have as much capability in house, might hire me to do some of that stuff. So I'm looking for those kind of opportunities and I'm trying to see where this goes. I have no idea. That's the big thing with this is like, I'm trying to stay open because maybe there's something here I don't even know yet. Maybe this is a job that hasn't been created. I'm trying to stay open and fluid and be willing to go where I have to go. I'm not writing a business plan and saying I'm going after these brands or this client. I'm just seeing where the opportunities lead, and I'll just keep trying.
So what changes if AI gets like 10 times better? What's going to change first? Day rates, timelines, like what happened?
Well, my day rate has already come down, but for what I can do and, hours worked and the overhead I'll have going forward, it works for me. I may make more than I made as a photographer. But yeah, it changes things. It definitely changes things for us. I do think there becomes a little more cost pressures. It's just deciding where you want to, attach your wagon, where you want to go.
If somebody's out there and they're listening, they're over 40 and they've been in their career for however many years, and they're seeing AI and they're seeing it as like a young person's game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to them?
I think that's completely opposite because, you've got experience. You understand AI is a lot about editing. And if you think about a newspaper, they don't go, hey, you just graduated college. You're the editor. No. They give it to the 40, 50-year-old guy who's seen a lot of stuff, who's been there, who understands, who can help shape younger minds. And that's the editor. So I think as an older individual, we have a huge leg up. And I see this from the people I talk to and my peers and other people in the industry who have decided to make this break and start doing more AI stuff, or who are just naturally good at it. And they tend to be the older people. The younger ones are having a little bit harder time to adapt because they don't have a vision yet. I mean, I didn't. When I was in my 20s, I had no idea, and I think that, it takes a while to develop that sense of what works, what doesn't, what's important. I understand the whole, brand ecosystem too. I understand what's important to a brand and what they're trying to sell and what they're trying to do. That's just really hard to take all that in when you're really young. So I think the older people have a huge advantage in this. I actually worry, like I said, for my assistant, where it's like, I don't think this is going to be a good long-term career. You really need to keep your eyes wide open if this is what you want to do, because you'd build your career, you'd spend time working hard, and then you would be rewarded later. But now I don't know.
Wise words, Terry. I think you got to get out there and you got to try this and you got to test it. There's always something new. Nano Banana came out. You got to like jump in, test it out.
Yeah.
Don't be stuck on ChatGPT. Like, it doesn't hurt to try everything.
Yeah. And I don't want to be doom and gloom. I mean, I'm really like, I think there's a bright future for all kinds of photographers and all kinds of stuff. But I just think AI is so exciting, and the capabilities it opens up to us. If you really love just exploring and creating, why not be curious? Why not jump in and see what you can do?
I hate to ask, like, what are some prompt tricks? But like, what are some terms that you're using in your prompts that someone that doesn't have photography experience may not be using? Like one hack.
Gosh, I struggle with that because anymore. I'm not really, I do focus on the prompt, but it kind of becomes because I need to change something. So I start thinking about what I need to change. And that kind of encourages me to go, I should say 20 millimeter lens. So it really widens this out, or I should say something. I'm not a guy that has a prompt structure. Like I always say, background, this, that. For me, it's more about trying it in different tools. Sometimes I'll go to chat and have chat help me with a prompt. I'll just do a long form speech to text, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a shot like this and I want it to be this way. And I need it in a 16:9 format. And, it's going to be horizontal and we might do some motion with it. So what should I do if I want to create da, 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 da? And chat will give me a prompt. And I'm like, you know what? That's pretty good. And then I might say, what if I was going to do this in Flux? Would you change it? And it'll be like, oh, for Flux, I would do this. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. And then, I might try it, and I might try it in a couple of different places. I've been having some luck with that lately because I can just kind of ramble on in my usual long form kind of talking and remembering things and whatever. And then chat can help me kind of formalize that into a prompt. And then I can take that back into the AI. And then if I don't get what I want, I go, oh, I can't say cinematic because it makes it, too dramatic. So I need to say this. So I don't know there's a word or a structure or a prompt or anything I use. I think now the big thing is knowing what tool will do that. Oh, you want to take your statue that's 5 inches tall and make it look like a sculpture outside. Well, what will do that best, and with not changing your sculpture. So, or your statue, what will do that without messing it up and still make it look real. So it's about knowing what tool to use too.
Yeah. One thing I've been doing quite a bit of, and I did an ad with this not too long ago, is I'm sketching. I'm a sketch guy. So I'm sketching out. I've got 2 people. I need them doing this. I kind of sketch out what I want them doing and where I want their hand position. And I just throw that in. And then maybe I'll pull, if I've got like a photo of some fabric that I want, whether I pull it off the web or wherever, make a suit out of this, make the background out of that, and just give it specifics. And then you kind of build your image. And then it's like, all right, let's knock this back. Let's bring this forward. And it always tweaks things here and there. But for me, that's because I can see it. Now I want a specific position. So I'm just telling it, make this, but in real, right?
Yeah.
As simple as possible.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you sketch anything in?
No, I'm not a good artist that way at all. I've thought about it because I do see a lot of applications where a sketch would be very, very helpful. I mean, sometimes I'll do a few things. Maybe it's something, I've seen a certain composition in another image, and I might change that image to a sketch so I can then feed that in and maybe get, the same idea. But, I'm not a good artist that way. I mean, that's one of the things I love about AI because now I can incorporate art.
I'm even just taking an image and throwing it into Photoshop and circling an area, pointing, and then bringing that image back in so that it knows exactly where I want something coming in at. Like if it's wind,
Yeah, I've done that before.
Just like you would in the old days, right? Like you would just write notes.
Yeah, I've done it before where I've composited a few images to make the kind of shot I want and done a horrible composite and then told it to, create this and blend these together and it will do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome stuff. It's so fun. I mean, I just have so much fun right now. I'm curious again, because I think one of the things that happens is you progress in your career, you start doing things are safe because I don't want to screw this up and I know this will work and I just need to do this because the clients are here and they're watching me and all that stuff. And you just become very safe. And now I can just be like, what happens? What happens if I try that? I can do anything.
Terry, you've got balls. I gotta say that because most people are, I've got a studio, man, I don't want to close this. If I close it, I'm hanging myself out there, but to do it, it takes balls to do, man. And hats off. I'm super excited to see where you take this because I've been following you forever. I appreciate you jumping on the first podcast and, appreciate you jumping on this one. And I can't wait. I can't wait.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.